Kagami science is not all for some, but this one is not as good, but it's not as bad either. You will get one fall, don't worry, but not at the beginning, okay?
Chapter 1, Prologue. You know, if you really wanted to be a hero that badly, there might be another way.
Oh wait, that's not too early. Useless, worthless, thank you. That's been a name for so long, but it can't possibly be true. Izuku was supposed to be the greatest hero in the world. Izuku didn't need Baku's approval, he just needs to ask All Might. His idol will tell him everything. Okay, just keep smiling. Don't be here, the only listener. Sure, we can't sit down and listen to my sister's recently short of Sonori, and it's told him here because can't be me here because the co-host cost me grab she must see where her sister's build. This fast will be pretty heavy, so it's time for enough for you. Consider this, however, this is gonna be a bumpy road.
Please, just stop, just leave me alone, Kikin. Just pray that you'll be born with a quirk in your next life. Why are you so mean, Kikin? What have I ever done to you? And take a swan dive off the roof of the building. And what if I did? Who could you bully then, Kikin? Fueled with despair that Kikin could even make him think of the possibility, Izuku turned around. His shoulders were tense and there was a spitting remark on his tongue. His shoulder burned from Bakugo's earlier harassment, but Izuku long since learned to ignore those. There had been plenty of worse injuries that left Izuku limping and hunched over, trying to get to the bathroom before his mother could see. This was child's play. However, it seemed as if Kikin wasn't worried about Izuku's potential comeback as he raised his hand. The smoke and heat radiated from his palm as he gave Izuku a sharp-edged smirk. Something wrong. And just like that, Izuku wilted. His earlier fight left him as if deflating a balloon and he was left standing in a junior high classroom all by himself. He knew better than to talk back to Bakugo. Nothing he said ever got through to him. Bakugo didn't care what Izuku had to say. Especially not when all it took to get him to shut up was a little taste of his quirk. And it wasn't as if Izuku had a quirk to defend himself with. Bakugo scoffed as he and his posse turned to the door and left. His earlier words still rung in Izuku's head. The young Midoriya boy later walked down to the fountain full of dejection and sadness. He retrieved his burned and waterlogged notebook out of the fountain with a long-suffering sigh. He had been well versed in many of Bakugo's bullying tactics. But destroying his notebook was a rare occasion that had only happened one other time. Izuku was sure that with some time in the sunlight of his window, the pages could be dried enough to at least salvage what information he had left inside. My dreams have turned into fish food. _____. For as long as he could remember, Izuku Midoriya dreamed of being a hero. All Might posters, pajamas, bedsheets, became the number one thing on his wish lists. Some would call him a fanatic, and maybe he was. But little Izuku liked to.
Little Izuku likes to call it a passion. Not just for Omi, but with the members of his peace, and bravery and strength. Three things Midoriya never had. Midoriya wasn't always aware of the balance that he reformed the social class of society. He remembered being a small boy, only 3 at a time, so happy and full of life, when he met his best friend Kashi, they were the duo of playground. When the first came in, we're gonna be the number one heroes. Then Izuku asked, his eyes wide in hope, and Pudgy teeth pushed him in.
We can't both be number one, Deku. But I'll be number one and you'll be my sidekick. Bakugo announced with confidence oozing from his pores. And Izuku found himself nodding along excitedly. As long as he got to be an All Might level hero, he really didn't care which of them ranked higher. As long as they were together. But Bakugo's quirk formed soon after. And Izuku got excited for him and anxiously awaited the arrival of his own quirk. Maybe he was a late bloomer. The next 2 years passed by quickly and still no quirk for the little Midoriya boy. Bakugo had left him in the dust for his new friends that actually had quirks. He had no use for a quirkless sidekick. And Izuku had tried so hard to hold on. I'm just a late bloomer, Kikin. I'll get my quirk soon. He swore desperately, but Bakugo never gave him a second glance. Or when he did, it was to use him as a stand-in for all the villains he swore to take down with his quirk. Izuku hated those times. He'd go home, clothes singed, skin raw and
on the rare occasion, blistered. His mother would call down on him constantly, offering to him Bakugo's mother. But he's not having even less by surprises. He still learned to control it, murders playing.
And every time she'd just give him a strained look, but she would put the phone down and Izuku was free to get a sigh of relief. And then, he eventually just gave up. Not all men are created equal. Izuku learned that the night his mother kneeled in front of him, crying and apologizing to him as if his quirklessness was her fault. Izuku didn't even know how he got on the top of the roof of the school. All he knew was that he was staring over the edge, looking at the hard concrete down below. His feet were cold and he noticed sometime during the walk he had taken his shoes off and left them neatly by the ridge. Was he really doing this? Should I leave a note? He decided against it. Besides, his burned and soaked journal showed all it needed to. He stared down at the fall and took a calming breath. People say you die before you hit the ground. Would it hurt? Who would be the one to find him? Would Kikin see? Izuku felt ice fill his veins. What was he doing? Jumping because Kikin said to? That was ridiculous. Why should he give him satisfaction? The young boy stepped off the ledge feeling disgusted in himself as he shoved his feet back into his shoes. He'd show Kikin. He'd get into UA without a quirk. He'd become the next #1 hero. He'd make All Might proud. This was his thought as he took his journal and slowly made his way home. He forced a smile onto his face. One that probably looked more like a grimace than anything else, but he was determined to keep smiling. That's what All Might did. That's what All Might would want. He found it hard to smile as the sludge monster grabbed him and tried to force itself into his body. His airways were cut off as he struggled in its grasp. Moving his limbs was like fighting molasses as one of his arms reached up and tried to pull the sludge from his mouth. The monster called him a hero, but Izuku wasn't a hero. Not yet. But he wanted to be. And he couldn't be if he let this villain take control of his body and use him as a puppet. But his sight was already getting spotty, the fight in his limbs was getting weaker. I think I'm dying. This wasn't how he wanted to die. Yes, he stood on the school roof and planned to jump, but he chose that. This was wrong, this was slow and painful and Izuku had never taken the time to think about what it would feel like to die. Someone, please help me. A sharp metallic twang rang in the air, but Midoriya hardly noticed it as he tried not to cry. The sludge clung to him like a cage, leaving him no room to struggle. Have no fear. You are safe, a voice. Wait, Izuku knew that voice. It was now that I am here, that is. All Might? The ensuing fight could hardly be called that at all. The sludge monster tried to attack, but All Might easily dodged it and went in for a single punch. The force of which shot into the sludge and forced it to disperse. Izuku heard the monster comment on its inability to reform only seconds before it exploded completely, leaving not even a single speck on the boy's uniform. Izuku fell back onto the pavement, and it was either the oxygen deprivation or the impact that rendered him unconscious. _____. Hey.
Hey, wake up. Hey, Izuku heard as his body woke up. He felt a gentle tapping on his cheek as the voice edged him on. He didn't want to wake up. He just wanted to sleep. To go home and wallow in his own pity. There was no way his bad day could get any worse. Either way, he must have been some sign that he was awake. The voice is a win. There, I found lights. Wait, the lights there.
Wait. Izuku's eyes jerked open and he sat up quickly as his brain tried to process what he was seeing. Whoa there. Take it easy, kid. You hit your head pretty hard. Are you alright? The voice No All Might asked him, setting a supporting hand on his shoulder. The poor boy could only nod speechlessly as he looked up at the imposing figure of his idol. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to get you caught up in my justicing back there. Usually I dash. Izuku was ashamed to admit that he tuned out as he tried to process what he was seeing. His hero. His idol. All Might. In the flesh. Standing right in front of him. This was something Izuku could only dream about. But here it is, actually happening. He needed an autograph. Looking around frantically for his journal, the damaged one since it was all he had on him, he was amazed to see it held out to him. Looking for this? I found it near your things when I captured the villain. I took the liberty of signing it for you. The boy's eyes widened as he took his journal back from his hero and opened it up to truly see All Might's signature on a whole spread of his notebook. Speechless, I see. No worries. It was the least I could do for getting you all mixed up in this mess. All Might told him before patting his pocket. It was only then that Izuku noticed the soda bottle containing the villain that had just previously been choking the life out of him. Now then, I have to get this villain off to the authorities. Stay out of trouble. See you around. And just like that, All Might turned around and crouched down as if to jump away. Izuku saw his opportunity to ask something weighing on his mind slipping away and finally found his voice. Wait. All Might? I have a question before you leave. He shouted, holding into the hem of his jacket nervously. Just one. What followed was the single worst decision Izuku had ever made in his life. Grabbing onto the hero right as he took off, being carried high in the air. It was terrifying, but he was so badly needing an answer. Luckily, All Might seemed to take pity on him as he landed on a nearby rooftop. Well then, and Izuku was ashamed to hear the annoyance in his voice, I guess I have time to answer one question. Izuku nodded as he racked his brain for how to ask. Is it possible for, he muttered. The words lumped up in his throat and he swallowed hard, trying to force it back down. Was he going to cry again? He hoped not. You're going to have to speak up, my boy. I can't hear you. Is it possible for someone without a quirk to be a hero? Someone like me? Izuku shouted suddenly and covered his mouth after. Yelling at All Might? What was he thinking? I have no powers, but could I ever hope to be someone like you? Without a quirk? Izuku looked down at his shoes and nodded. Yes. My classmates call me weak and they tell me it's impossible. But I want to help other people. I want to save them. I want to be a hero like you. And with that, Izuku found the courage to look up at his idol, to meet his eye not as a victim, but as a hopeful kid. But, the man standing there wasn't All Might. Steam rolled off his malnourished form like his skin was molten hot. His hair, merely a poor mimic of All Might, was stringy and limp. He looked sickly and _____. Neither hero nor student noticed the absent bottles as the green blob inside the soda bottle started to wriggle around and slowly, oh so slowly, unscrew the lid from the inside. It came off easily and fell away, giving it the opportunity to slither out. It continued its own plans to find a suitable vessel to hold out in while he tried to skip town. And just his luck, right above the manhole cover he found refuge in, he heard the voices of 3 young boys. Perfectly inconspicuous skin suits for his purpose. He emerged from one of the holes to form behind the one farthest away. He was talking about someone. A fellow classmate. And his voice held wrought iron conviction that the villain knew would make for a sturdy skin suit. With his luck, maybe he'd have the quirk to match. You Bakugo. One of the other kids warned as he pointed a lengthened finger to the villain. The blonde turned around and seemed to freeze as he took sight of the monster. What the dash, he couldn't finish his thought as he was ambushed by the green sludge. Underscore underscore underscore. Why, you aren't All Might? Izuku shouted immediately as he tried to discern this man from his icon. There was no way. I assure you, kid. I am. It's like those people who are constantly sucking in at the pool, he said nonchalantly as he wiped dripping blood from his mouth. And I'm counting on you to keep your mouth shut about this. That includes your friends. He sounded tired. Izuku shivered at the coldness in the voice that was such a sharp contrast to All Might's warm and happy greeting. I don't have dash. His thought ground to a halt as he saw a grotesque red and patchy scar marking this man All Might's skin. It was layered and layered with stitching scars, and Izuku felt his own side burn at the thought of the pain. It worsened as All Might explained the fight that wrecked his body and put a timer on his hero time. Symbol of peace. Always smiling, I smile to hide the fear inside me. A brave face I use when this job gets rough. The man spoke with conviction and anger, a pantomime of All Might. So the answer to your question is no. Izuku almost forgot about his question in the wake of this reveal. But now that he remembered, he shrunk down to his knees on the rooftop. His heart continued sinking down and down. Down to the center of the earth. Heroing is a dangerous job and most villains can't be beaten without powers. So no, I don't think you could become a hero without a quirk. If you want to help other people, become a police officer. Or a medic. But leave the life risking to the people with the durability to handle it. But my dream dash, Izuku started as tears welled up in his eyes. It's okay to have dreams. Just make sure those dreams are attainable. All Might told him as he walked to the door on the building and headed inside. The door slammed, signifying the end of the conversation and the end of Izuku's dreams of being a hero. How could he continue on when his idol, the one he looked up to since he could walk, told him to stop trying? All because he didn't have a quirk. After his idol broke his heart, Izuku found no other way to continue on. His dreams he held so tightly were shattered. Not even by Kiken, but by the hero he looked up to his whole life. He really was useless without a quirk. A stupid Deku like Kiken had told him all those times before. Izuku should have listened to him then. He should have given up on his foolish dream of going to UA on the technicality that quirkless people were allowed to apply. He could see now that the regulation change was for publicity's sake. After all, no quirkless person could actually pass the entrance exams, could they? Pray for a quirk in your next life, then take a swan dive off the roof of the building. Bakugo's friend's laughter rang in Izuku's ear, telling him just how stupid he was for ever thinking he had a chance in this unfair world. Before he knew what he was doing, Izuku had his shoes kicked off sloppily and he was standing on the edge of the roof that All Might had so casually left him on after breaking his heart. His breath was quick and shaky as if trying to make up for a workout. But deep down Izuku could feel that he'd never been calmer. He thinks about all the obituaries of quirkless kids like him who couldn't find the strength to continue living. How the articles always talked about how if only they reached out or they had so much to live for. No, I don't. He knew that if he didn't know anything else, he had nothing to live for. Not without a quirk. Even the police academy would expect him to have a quirk. What quirkless adults did he know? None. The world has no place for me anymore. The thought was unsettling. Scary even. But true. There's no point in delaying the inevitable. Izuku took one last deep breath, stretching his arms out beside him. It'll be over fast. He hoped it would be at least. He thought he had read somewhere that your heart would supposedly stop before you hit the ground. Closing his eyes tightly, Izuku shifted his weight forward. He felt his toes leave the edge of the roof and then his heels. He was falling now. The wind rushed past him faster than ever. Faster than a roller coaster. It almost felt like he was flying. A small smile spread across his lips. Flying. That would be a fun quirk. Large wings spread out through the air like hawks. That would be heroic. Izuku didn't process the moment he hit the ground. There was a moment of a white-hot heat, before there was nothing. It was only when he opened his eyes and saw himself limp on the pavement that he realized the deed was done. His body was bent in a grotesque fashion and the puddle of blood around himself was steadily growing. He found himself waiting for something to happen next. Wasn't there supposed to be a bright light? No light? Flames for eternity? Why was he still here? Looking around he saw nobody milling about or frantically running over to call help. But then there was someone. A woman. Her hair was inky black and tied back away from her face. She was wearing some kind of hero costume. But not one Izuku recognized. Dark blue, yellow, and white. Almost reminiscent of All Might's original costume. Or perhaps Yue's colors. "Oh Toshinori, what have you done?" The woman spoke in a whisper as she kneeled beside Izuku's body despite the steady pool of blood growing around it. Distantly, Izuku noticed as the blood didn't pool around her. It kept its normal spread even when it reached her knees. "My name isn't Toshinori." Izuku couldn't help but think. He walked over to the woman who now shook with sobs. Cautiously, he reached out to her hoping to console her. His hand landed solidly on her shoulder, which surprised them both until the sound of a door opening grabbed their attention. Both their heads turned to see the same skinny blonde man as before. All Might. But he wasn't looking at them. He was looking at the body. My body. It was like everything was moving in slow motion. Izuku could see the confusion, the recognition, more confusion, and then deep bone-chilling terror cross over the slim face. The man's body tensed up before starting to run over. But it was like he was moving through molasses with how slow everything was. Izuku realized he was running over with his hands already out waiting to touch. No. He couldn't help the denial from rushing out. I don't want him to touch me. The last thing Izuku wanted was to see those hands touching or holding him after the emotional pain he had just put him through. As if he cared about what happened to Izuku. If he cared, he wouldn't have left Izuku on the roof to his own thoughts. At once both the woman and Izuku dove for his body before there was a flash of bright light. The first thing that came back was chilling cold. Like the time Izuku left his gloves at home and his hands suffered for it. But now it was all over. Deep inside himself, Izuku opened his eyes and saw himself staring up at All Might. All Might, who has tears rolling down his cheeks. He turned his head, looking for the woman again, but all he saw was blood. All over the pavement. In shock, Izuku jolted into sitting up. "And no, don't move. You don't know the damage," All Might said, reaching out as if he were going to make him stay put. Izuku ignored him. Shoving away his hands, Izuku managed to get his feet under himself and stand. Nothing hurt. Which was strange. He had jumped, the evidence was all over the pavement. But why was he still here? He tried looking over his own injuries, but all he could see was the blood. But his limbs were no longer bent out of shape like before. And pressing his hands into the back of his head yielded the same lack of injury. Like before, he saw All Might's hands reaching out for him, and the same childish defiance came over him as he stumbled back. Before the man could try again, he took off at a run. "Child, wait." All Might called out behind him, but Izuku kept going. His socked feet smacked the pavement with every stomp until he was safely hidden in an alley near his house. It didn't seem to matter though. All Might didn't follow him. Izuku took a moment to catch his breath. Slumped over, he watched his socked toes wiggle on the ground. He left his shoes on the building. They were his favorite pair. "You can get them tomorrow, foolish boy," a voice told him, and Izuku's head jerked to the opening of the alley, but there was nobody there. "Who's there?" he asked, shaking a little. The chill never seemed to leave him as he ran his hands down his own arms. You can hear me? What kind of question was that? Of course, he could hear. But where was the voice coming from? I'm right here. The voice was indignant, but Izuku saw nothing. I can't see you. Are you, the woman who was with me? Izuku asked nervously. He could remember her now. Black hair, tear-filled eyes. He had caused that sorrow. Yes, sweetie, she held regret in her voice. Are you all right? Izuku thought about it before shivering again. I'm cold. His arms wrapped around himself, but it didn't help much, seeing as how his clothes were wet with blood. His blood. And he didn't feel up to confronting the fact that he had actually followed through with what Bakugo had told him to do. Let's get you home, all right? You should get cleaned up and then we can talk. Izuku could only nod as he turned in the direction of his house and started walking. It was a pretty quick journey, all things considered, with no one around to see. There must be a villain attack somewhere. Izuku couldn't find it in himself to care as he walked into his home. There were pots and pans clunking in the kitchen, and Izuku was glad his mother was distracted. He had stopped trailing blood pretty quickly as it absorbed into the fabric of his uniform. And he was glad to not leave tracks behind. Izuku, is that you? She asked, still cooking. Yeah, Mom. It's me. I'm just gonna go take a shower. Izuku said, tiptoeing quickly down the hall. All right, dinner will be ready soon. I'm making your favorite, she said cheerfully. Izuku just ran into the bathroom and locked the door. He quickly stopped himself from leaning against it as he sighed. But that didn't prepare him for seeing himself up close in the mirror. He looked awful. Like something out of a horror movie. His green hair looked black as it was matted down on his head, blood dripping on his uniform not yet dry. Izuku, honey, you need to get clean. Nana's voice was gentle and kind, knocking him out of his horror. Giving him something to focus on. Izuku looked down at his ruined uniform. It clung to his skin in an uncomfortable way, and the coppery smell was almost overpowering. He didn't want to track blood anywhere as he took it off though. It seemed Nana knew exactly what to do as she urged him to get into the shower fully clothed and stand under warm water. The water that came out immediately turned the water red as well, and Izuku was sure it would never wash out. Don't worry, I know how to deal with blood. Nana's voice was serene as Izuku started to peel his uniform off and lay it into the tub. The difference was stark as his body actually started to get cleaner. He went through his cleaning routine, having to wash his hair twice to get all the blood out, but it was worth it to step out of the shower feeling slightly better, if not still cold. Izuku wrapped a towel around himself before turning to his uniform. And the slight hint of peace he had was ripped away. Right. He still had to deal with that. When does your mother usually clean up? Nana asked. Usually right before she goes to bed, Izuku answered weakly. Then we have plenty of time. Do you have hydrogen peroxide? Will that work? Izuku asked, perking up slightly as he reached for the brown bottle under the sink. Used for the many scrapes and cuts sustained by Bakugo. It was still mostly full as well. It should. Just spill a little on and let it sit for a bit. If you close the curtains your mother won't see. And we'll come to get it after dinner. That made Izuku feel better at least. The uniform sizzled as the peroxide made contact with the blood, but the foam was slowly trickling down the drain. Stepping out of the bathroom, he practically ran into his own room. He went to take the towel off to change but stopped. You're not watching me, are you? There was a scoff in his head. I'm perfectly capable of turning around, there. Now get dressed. Izuku really couldn't do anything but take her word for it as he took the towel off and put on some soft lounge clothes. Finally done, he started vigorously drying his hair, leaving it only damp and fluffy and blood-free. You can turn around now. There doesn't seem to be a single scratch on you, Nana said, both amazed and grateful. Are you sure you never had a quirk? Izuku sighed before he flopped back on his bed. Yes, I'm sure. The doctor confirmed it and everything. Izuku felt himself tear up despite his effort not to. Just a quirkless Deku who has no use being a hero. The bitter reminder of All Might's words made his chest ache in heartbreak. Hey now. That's not true. Look, listen to me. Nana sighed. I don't agree with what Toshinori said. He was out of line and took his frustrations out on you. You can be a hero if you want. But you have to work hard. Even harder than all the rest. You need to be able to protect yourself from people with powerful quirks. Izuku suddenly felt warmth bloom inside him, chasing away the chill that had set in before. He found himself closing his eyes and basking in the warmth. Just as quickly as it was there, however, it was gone. He sniffled minutely as his body trembled. The warmth came back then, brushing against his cheek where a single tear dripped down. What are you doing? He asked sadly. I put my hand on your cheek. Did you feel that? Nana asked, and suddenly Izuku felt it again. You're warm. He tells her, holding his hand out, and soon he could feel the warmth spread into his fingertips. I don't know how this works. I shouldn't be warm to you. She seemed confused but also happy at this new fact shown by the warmth wrapping around Izuku's left side. Maybe we're connected. Somehow. I mean, you were there for me when Izuku trailed off and cleared his throat. You were near my body. I was with Toshinori originally. But after I heard him say all that to you, I decided to stay back to make sure you were okay. I tried pulling you back. Her voice cracked. My hands went right through. And then you fell. And I thought, if nothing else, she sniffled, causing Izuku to tear up as well. If nothing else, I could lead you to the other side. So you wouldn't be alone. Izuku's tears fell in earnest now. This stranger who knew nothing about him was upset at his death. Even separating from the person she was there to try to help him. I'm sorry, he choked. I thought I was alone. And Bakugo told me to take a swan dive, and All Might said I couldn't be a hero, and I just didn't know what else to do. He sobbed. The warmth was all around him now, and he curled into it. Closing his eyes, it almost felt like a hug. The warmth was quickly chasing away the sorrow he felt inside as he thought about what very well could have been his final moments. SHH, Izuku. It's in the past now. We can't forget it, but we can move past it, all right? Can you be strong? Heroes always smile, don't they? She tried comforting him, and Izuku found himself nodding. Smile for me, sweetie. I don't know if I can be strong. He was honest. I jumped. How can I recover from that? Izuku asked Nana as there was a knock on the door. He flinched harshly but sat up. He mourned the loss of the warmth as he separated from it. Honey, are you all right? Dinner is ready. Inko Midoriya called out. Yeah, I'll be right out. Izuku grabbed the towel he discarded and wiped the tears away quickly. Do I look okay? He asked the air around him. A bit red, but that can be chalked up to the shower. Come on, you must be starving. Nana seemed to move away, leaving Izuku feeling the chill once more. It couldn't be helped as he went to the door and saw his mother waiting right outside nervously. Forcing a smile was difficult, but it was worth it to see his mother relax. I can smell it already. His stomach growled in agreement, and his mother excitedly waved him over. The meal was good. It was warm enough to chase away the chill that had taken over his body, which was great, seeing as how Izuku didn't want his mother asking questions. He felt like he hadn't eaten anything in days. His stomach was a bottomless pit where even the whole bowl couldn't fill. Stomach growling, he shyly asked for another bowl that his mom was all too happy to push in front of him. Sweetie, did you eat lunch today? she asked in concern, pushing some of his curls out of his eyes. Thinking quickly, Izuku shook his head. One of my classmates. Their lunch was ruined, so I gave them mine. More like Bakugo had stomped on his lunch after stealing it from his bag, but oh well. He really didn't want his mother digging further into it. Inko kissed his forehead with a smile. My heroic boy. I'm so proud of you. Izuku felt the sting of his lie in his chest as Inko went to prepare her own bowl of food. He didn't like to lie, but the truth was far worse. Don't worry, sweetie. We'll make a hero out of you yet, Nana whispered to him happily. Chapter 2, Dagaba Beach. That night, after he had squeezed all the bloody water out of his uniform until his hands cramped, Izuku collected all of his All Might merchandise and hid it away in boxes inside his closet. Nana was silent the entire time as he worked, which he was grateful for, but that didn't stop him from feeling her want to ask questions. I'm not going to give excuses for him, Nana finally said as the All Might sheets were replaced with plain black ones. I don't want to, but I feel like I should. Izuku shook his head. I don't care about him anymore. It was a lie and they both knew it. He made his opinion clear. Izuku, wait, the boy stopped with a sigh and she continued on. I'm breaking a lot of rules for this. I want to explain something to you. So please sit down. I don't want you to get in trouble over me. Izuku didn't know how being dead was supposed to work, but if Nana was breaking rules for him, it must be important. By her silence this entire time she must have been trying to figure out how to explain. You won't get me in trouble. And her voice sounded so fond. I just have to be honest about some things so we can understand your quirk. Izuku still flinched at that. The fact that he has a quirk. Something that brings him back to life after he dies. It was pretty unsettling. But even so, he took a fresh notebook from his desk and flipped it to the first page. Okay, I'm ready. At Nana's hesitance, he rushed to explain. Oh, I write down everything I know about every quirk I come across. If you're worried about others reading it, they won't. I'll leave this one here. That seemed to relax her as she started to speak. All right, well. Let me tell you the story of One for All. It's a quirk that allows the holder to pass on their quirk to others. She paused and Izuku could only imagine that she was watching him write it. Only when he finished the entry did Izuku seem to process exactly what she just said. Wait, a quirk that can be passed to others. His excitement seemed to please her as he felt the warmth return, passing along the back of his head and shoulders. Yes. It is. Now, there is still a lot I can't tell you for privacy's sake, but I'll tell you what I can. One for All is passed down from person to person from the original holder to stop a very bad man named All for One. She paused once more and Izuku realized she wanted him to connect the dots. So if One for All is a quirk that can be given, All for One is a quirk that takes quirks. He moved to write it down as Nana continued. Exactly. Can you imagine a man able to steal quirks and hand them out at will? He shivered both at the idea and the cold passing over his body once more. The world would be in danger. He would be unstoppable. Exactly. Good. You're getting it? How many people have had One for All? Izuku asked as he flipped to a new page. I was number 7. Izuku was almost frustrated as she left him hanging for knowledge again, but he knew this must be her way of telling him what he needed without breaking so many rules. So you already passed it on. And then it all seemed to click into place. You passed it on to All Might? That's why you were calling him Toshinori. You were his mentor, weren't you? But, if you died this young, All for One got you. And then he fought All Might and that's how he got that giant scar. Izuku dropped his pencil and held his head in his hands for a minute. Oh my, does this mean that, All for One is gone? Did All Might beat him? The silence was killing him. Nana. We think so. But we don't know for sure. But Izuku, that's not what I wanted to talk to you about. Slowly Izuku forced himself to calm down. Obviously there was more and he needed to get it all written. What else is there? The warmth sat on his shoulder as he waited. All the holders of One for All are connected after death. Like a family tree prepared to give encouragement in dire situations if need be. But I can't feel the other holders anymore. I'm not bonded to One for All anymore. Izuku froze and not even the warmth of Nana's arm on his shoulder could snap him out of it. I'm sorry. Izuku, why would you be sorry? Nana's voice was full of confusion. But Izuku only curled in on himself. If it wasn't for me you wouldn't be stuck here. As if anyone wanted to be tethered to some stupid Deku. And here he thought Nana was with him because she liked him. But instead, he just kidnapped her from One for All. Hey, no. Stop that. Izuku, that's not true. I'm here because I want to be. The warmth spread all over him and he couldn't help but lean into it. You need me more than Toshinori does. I said I'd make a hero out of you and I still plan on it. Izuku looked up only to see the ceiling of his room. I wish I could see you again. Nana sighed. There was a lot of that happening lately. There may be some pictures of me online. But I doubt there's very many. Izuku seemed to take that as a challenge as he went to his computer. What's your hero name? Nana. Then what's your actual name? Shimura Nana. You used your real name for your hero name. Izuku snickered as he began searching. The atmosphere was happier now than before as Nana laughed in his head. Oh yeah? What's your brilliant hero name, huh? Small Fry? Broccoli Boy? Izuku blushed. He always thought he'd use some spin-off name for All Might. But now, of course, he knew that was the last thing he wanted. I don't know yet, but I have time to figure it out. They were silent after that as Izuku focused on research Nana. Surprisingly, there were a fair bit of pictures around of her. And it didn't take long for him to find merch for her either. Although, when he did, she tried hard not to blush as he ordered a few trinkets with her symbol and face on them. I honestly didn't think I was that popular, she said quietly as Izuku finished up his research. It's not hard to see why. Izuku smiled this time. The male-to-female hero ratio isn't as large as it was back then. And you were a strong, female hero that didn't base your popularity on sex appeal. You were a great role model. Something every little girl could aspire to be. Aw shucks kid. There was a quick blast of warmth on his shoulder that Izuku chalked up to Nana playfully punching him. You should head to bed. You have a busy day ahead of you tomorrow and a long way to go before you can have a chance at being accepted into UA. What are you going to do while I sleep? Izuku asked, eyes already drooping slowly. I'm going to be looking around and exploring a bit. Don't worry. I'll still be here in the morning. She seemed to pick up on his anxieties. Izuku felt warmth as Nana pet his hair back. Good night, Izuku. _____. The next morning Izuku woke up to a hand petting his hair. Time to get up. You have training to do. Up and at 'em. Nana's voice was overly peppy and Izuku felt very reluctant to get out of bed. 5 more minutes. He said, turning over. Fair warning Izuku, my singing voice is terrible and you're the only one who can hear me. So that means I can be as loud as I want. La 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 dash. Finally, Izuku jerked up, covering his ears. Okay. I'm awake. His face pinched up in a pout the entire time as he kicked the blankets off only to turn towards the window and see barely any light outside. Wanana. It's not even morning. He turned scowling into thin air, hoping to make contact with her. Yes, it is, Izuku. It's just early morning. Plenty of time for you to get ready and eat before we go out for a morning run. She was unnaturally cheery about the whole ordeal, but Izuku knew she wouldn't take no for an answer. Heading for the bathroom, he ran a brush through his wild curly hair and brushed his teeth. Stepping back into his room, Nana was sitting on his bed with a happy smile. It's chilly outside, so wear some long sleeves. Izuku grumbled the entire way to his closet. In the end, he decided on some simple shorts and long-sleeved shirt with his old dusty sneakers, seeing as how his red ones were still on top of a building. Nana urged him to eat a banana and some toast at least before they left, saying he could eat more when they got back. She seemed eager to get him out the door, only for Izuku to stumble over a box on his doorstep. Unmarked and everything. Oh, a present. Nana seemed awfully smug as Izuku went to open it, revealing his red shoes and book bag. Whoa! How did these get here? Izuku asked, immediately putting the bag by the door and switching his shoes out right then. That was when Nana's mood dampened a little. Well, Nana, what's wrong? Who was it? Izuku says, standing in his favorite shoes. It was Toshinori. He came by and dropped it off late last night. I was watching him put it down. He almost put it by your window, but I'm glad he thought better of it. There was a sour taste in Izuku's mouth as he looked down at his shoes. He was glad to have them back, but to have depended on All Might, part of him wanted to take them off out of spite. Oh, don't do that, Izuku. That's petty. I know you're better than that. Nana was stern as she said it, but her warmth near his cheek took the brunt of it away. Can you always read my mind? Changing the subject seemed like the easiest bet as Izuku stood back up, shutting the door behind him. He took off in a jog towards the right as he waited for his response. Only the big stuff. The thoughts with heavy emotions tied to them. Or I think it would work the same way if you were talking to me directly. Nana assures him. But really, Izuku. At least now you don't have to get them yourself. Izuku sighed. That was true. He continued to think about it as he jogged on. The sun rose a little more as he ran past Dagabo Municipal Beach. He took his break here despite the obviously unpleasant scene of trash and junk. Oh, gross. What happened here? Nana asked with clear disgust. Well, Izuku started. The water current brings trash out from the ocean and eventually people got tired of cleaning it, so it accumulated. And then it became a dump site for everyone unwanted or broken belongings. It really was a shame. Izuku remembered coming to the beach as a child with his mom. Sitting under an umbrella, building sandcastles. He wasn't tall enough at the time to go swimming, and by the time he was, it was overrun with garbage. That's awful. Nana seemed deeply upset about it actually. It made Izuku want to do something about it. Not just for her, mostly for her, but for the other people who would like to use the beach again. With determination in his eyes, he jogged to the nearest convenience store. There was a frail-looking lady turning the key to unlocking the doors right as he ran by. With this way she flinched, Izuku knew he had scared her with his quick approach. I'm sorry, ma'am. I was just coming to buy some trash bags. Do you have any in stock? Something about his face seemed to relax the older woman as she smiled and opened the door for him. Right in the back, kiddo. Izuku thanked her and smiled back before stepping inside. He found a box of trash bags quickly and took them to the counter. What's the hurry, son? Why do you need trash bags early this morning? You aren't trying to cause trouble, are you? The old woman pointed an accusing finger at Izuku and he quickly shook his head. Oh no, ma'am. I'm just going to try cleaning up the beach. I saw it on my morning run. This gave the old woman pause as she was scanning the box. Oh, is that right? You know how long that mess has been building, don't you? What makes you think you can do it alone? Her words weren't harsh, but patiently realistic. Izuku took them to heart. She was right. He has no obligation to clean the beach. And he could very easily leave the mess alone. But if he waited for someone else to step in, how could he be a hero? Well, ma'am. I figure I should at least try it. Besides, it's cheaper than a gym membership. Izuku smiled at the lady as he handed over his money. His statement seemed to please the old lady as she smiled. Good luck with that, son. If you need somewhere to dump the trash, the dumpsters behind my store get taken every Tuesday. Thank you, ma'am. Izuku said honesty as he headed for the door. He hadn't thought as far ahead as to how he was going to dispose of the trash, so it was nice to already have a solution. As young Izuku jogged back to the beach, Nana started to chuckle. Cheaper than a gym membership. Well, you're right about that. Her laughter was an amazing sound. Izuku wanted her to be that happy more often. And if that meant cleaning the beach so she could see its beauty again, so be it. The first trash bags were filled rather quickly. Cans of beer, broken bottles, discarded newspaper, it all got thrown into the bags. Paper, plastic, glass. Izuku could tote them to a recycling center. He was already feeling excited about this new project when Nana spoke up. Hey, wait. Let me show you something. She said calmly as Izuku picked up soda can packaging rings. He held them up and watched her motion, breaking every little loop. Do this. That way, if this ever happened again, wildlife can't get their head stuck inside. Izuku's eyes lit up as he began pulling apart each loop before putting it in its bag. Pretty soon, he had half the box of trash bags gone and only a 5x5 feet square cleaned up. It was as the sun started to reach the top of the sky that his phone rang and Izuku was reminded of his mother waking up. Mom. Izuku. Baby, where are you? I went to go wake you up since it's almost noon, but you were gone. Where did you go? She sounded both relieved and panicked over the phone, and Izuku felt immense guilt overcome him. I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't mean to worry you. I just went out for a walk this morning. And I got mixed up in some community service stuff. It wasn't technically a lie. And Nana even gave him an approving shoulder pat as he said it. A good reaction all in all. Community service? Izuku, what are you talking about? I'm cleaning up Dagaba Beach. He admitted. There was a pause before Inko sighed. Oh, baby. Your heart is so kind. I guess I can't be angry about that, but you are being careful, right? So you don't hurt yourself. Her worry was back and Izuku felt himself loving her even more. I am. I promise. All right, come home for lunch, all right? I'll have something ready for you. Okay, Mom. As they both hung up, Izuku felt Nana's arms wrap around his shoulders. How come even when you're being defiant you're still the most charming boy ever? Izuku snicked as he grabbed yet another bag. I don't know. Maybe it's another quirk of mine. He listened to Nana's laughter as he filed another bag and set it with the others. All right. I have 5 bags of recycling and 2 bags of regular trash. How do I do this? Nana let out a hum of contemplation. Carrying too much can damage muscles, so if you can manage, I say carry 2 bags per arm. That way you only have to take one more trip back here to take to the recycling base. It was a smart idea. Izuku found himself complying with the instructions, ditching the garbage bags in the nice woman's dumpster before going to the recycling plant. As Izuku explained his plan once more to the attendant, the young man smiled. Oh, good for you, kiddo. Here, let me take those off your hands and you can come to bring me the rest. They did a quick exchange and Izuku was off once more to retrieve the remaining bags. When the attendant took them, his other hand reached out in a closed fist. Izuku was confused but held his hand out under it. As he did so, the attendant dropped a few coins into his hand. Here's what you earned. I know it's not much, just a few hundred yen, but it's great that you're trying to clean up the beach. Amazed, Izuku shook his head. Oh no. I didn't do it for the money. I didn't even know you paid people to bring recycling. Here, I don't dash. As Izuku tried to hand it back, the attendant smiled and refused to take it. Keep it, kid. Seriously. You're doing good work. If you don't want it, I don't know. Give it to a homeless person. It's yours to spend. With that, the attendant walked off with the trash bags in hand, leaving Izuku shocked. See, kid. Being a good person pays off. Nana said, giving him a hug from behind. Pocketing the coins, Izuku turned and left. His head was tilted down in thought as he walked. I didn't do it for the money though. And that's admirable, but sometimes people like to repay you for your kindness. And there's a fine line between being humble and being rude. Nana told him. Besides, look at it this way, you can buy some gloves to keep your hands safe while cleaning like you promised your mother. When she put it that way, Izuku had to admit she had a point. Sure, a pair of gloves wouldn't break the bank, but continuously buying trash bags every other day would add up fast. If he could supplement the money this way, that would be nice. Okay, I guess you're right. Underscore underscore underscore. When Izuku returned home, his mother quickly shooed him into the bathroom for a shower before lunch. I love you, honey. But you smell like garbage and sweat. Nana seemed to find this hilarious as Izuku heard her laughing all the way from the bathroom as she decided to stay in the kitchen. Coming out of his room later freshly washed and dressed, Izuku felt like a new person. His arms and legs were aching with soreness a little bit, but he found it nice to have some kind of reminder of his work. And it was only lunchtime as well. Speaking of which, he absolutely devoured it. Nana and his mother had to remind him to slow down as he ate, or else he'd make himself sick. It wasn't his fault though. All that lifting left him starving. Joking aside, however, Izuku couldn't keep the smile off his face as he reflected on his morning so far. He could tell he was going to enjoy his new workout. Even if it meant getting up early in the morning. I'm glad people are enjoying this so far. I'm really enjoying writing it. I would just like to take the time to address a couple of things. 1. Tags will be added as the story progresses. I just avoided adding them now because I didn't want any spoilers. So keep that in mind. But of course, if there are any further potentially triggering topics, I will try my best to remember to add a warning in the notes before the chapter. 2. I haven't really decided on endgame relationships for this FIC yet. Or even if I wanted to include them in here. So, if you have an idea or a preference, I'd love to hear it. But that's not saying the majority will win. I reserve the right to make the final decision. That's all for now. I hope you enjoyed the chapter. Chapter 3, Aldera Junior High. The blank notebook spread was mocking Izuku as he desperately tried to write something down about his own quirk. It was the next day and Izuku felt that it was time to finish the beginnings of his own hero journal. But everything was just swirling around in his head. It seemed like a giant math equation he had no idea how to even start solving. Kid, I can hear your brain melding. What's going on? What has you stuck? Nana asked. Izuku tossed down his pencil and ran his hand down his face. I'm trying to make notes on my quirk. But I don't know what to write. This has never happened before. Quirk analysis always came so easy to me. Nana brushed against him sympathetically. Maybe if you try writing it from an outside perspective like all your other journals, you can figure it out. So that's what Izuku tried. He started off simply by drawing himself on one side and writing his name above it. But looking down at the pencil sketch, he could already feel something missing. You need to be in here. Izuku, Nana said fondly but softly. Like she was about to give him bad news. This is about you. And I feel that part of your writer's block comes from you trying to comprehend me and my connection with One for All. So you just want me to leave you out? Izuku said in disbelief. How could he do that? Nana was proof of his quirk. She was 50% of it even. He couldn't leave her out of it. There would be no point in writing the information at all. No. No, that's not what I'm saying. Nana corrected quickly. I just meant, leaving me a spirit. Not a deceased hero. Just leave me as a ghost. Izuku was quiet and he could feel her tension. Isn't that dehumanizing? You aren't just a spirit. You're Nana. The seventh holder. The mentor of All Might. You dash. I've come to terms with the fact that my time in the spotlight is over. I've accomplished a lot. And I'm proud of them. But it's your turn. I will help, yes. But in the end it's all going to be your hard work. Izuku didn't know why he felt so strongly about this, but in the end, for Nana's sake, he let it go. Turning back to his notebook, he sketched a tall humanoid outline standing behind and to the side of him in the drawing. He had to force himself to leave it at that and not add in Nana's costume and smile as he'd seen in the pictures. Thank you, Izuku. Nana was right though, it was easier to write in his notebook as if he was writing about a new hero debut. Izuku Midoriya. Quirk, ____. I don't know what to name my quirk. Izuku admitted shyly. Maybe something with the word soul in it. Or spirit. Nana offered. If allowed, Izuku knew he would fixate on a name for hours and not get anything else done, so he left the quirk name blank for the time being. One thing he realized that differed from writing about pro heroes is that everything he wrote about himself almost seemed like bragging. But he knew he couldn't underestimate his quirk like that. Facts. The bond formed to a nearby spirit after death. Revival occurs with no residual injuries. A mental link with the spirit occurs, giving the ability for telepathic thought transfers. Hey, Nana. Can you interact with anything? Izuku asked, feeling like he already knew the answer. Not really. My hand tends to pass through everything. Besides you, the only interaction I can do is this dash. There's a pause before the bulb in Izuku's lamp started to flicker. As it did, Izuku felt his entire body warm up as if sinking into a warm bath. The minute aches he felt from his morning run and trash cleanup disappeared even. But all too soon the flickering stopped and the middle schooler was once again filled with the chilling cold. He had gotten pretty good at ignoring it, but there was no hiding it as all the warmth left his body. At least, it felt that way. Izuku, are you alright? Nana was touching him again. Izuku could tell because there was a warm tingle in his shoulder and chest. But everywhere else was still cold. It was very odd. I'm fine. Just thinking. Ability to transfer electrical energy from nearby appliances and use it as power. Persistent cold chill unless in contact with the spirit. Bond seems to have formed in the chest. Turning to the drawing again, Izuku drew a thin line from his own chest into the spirit's. That was their bond. Nana, how far away can you walk away from me? About a block. From that point I snap back to you. Like a blink. 1 minute I'm in the street and the next I'm with you. Nana explained helpfully as Izuku wrote it down. And, you don't think I have One for All? No, Han, I don't have it either. The only one who has it now is Toshi. And when he retires, his successor will be the only holder. Nana explained. And it can only be passed on through intention. Someone can't steal his DNA. Izuku felt better with that as he flipped to the One for All page and updated it as well. I think that's everything so far. We can add as we go along. I should head to bed. Class is tomorrow. Nana groaned suddenly, which made Izuku laugh. Middle school education. I'm going to be so bored. After putting the notebook away, Izuku went into his closet and quickly changed into some pajamas. You could always give me the answers. Izuku Midoriya. I will not help you cheat. In fact, I'll give you the wrong answers out of spite. Izuku couldn't help his smile as he walked out and flicked his lights off. I know, Nana. I wouldn't seriously ask you to do that. Nana was silent for a bit and Izuku figured she went out to do whatever she usually did when he slept, but warmth on his forehead proved him wrong. You're a smart boy, Izuku. You can certainly finish out the year using your own knowledge. Now get some sleep. Good night, Nana. Night, kiddo. _____. The walk to school the next morning took Izuku right by the building he spoke to All Might on top of. Izuku hadn't even thought about it either until he was already there. Looking around, he couldn't help but find the spot near the base of the building where he had landed before. There was a clear, large stain that people seemed to just walk right over. It looked to have been scrubbed at seeing as how it was pretty dark. But there was the unmistakable tinge of red to it that anybody could tell what it was. Izuku. Nana got his attention, causing him to stumble back. Maybe you should sit down. There's a bench right over there. She was trying to lead him away. Izuku could feel it from the warmth pressing into his back. After standing there silent for a moment, he complied and went to go sit down. Nobody cares. He muttered. Blood on the pavement wasn't an uncommon sight. Especially near the shops and business areas that were prone to having muggings and robberies. Cleaning crews came in every so often to make sure there were no biohazard risks, but the stains were mostly able to fade with foot traffic and rain. But this was different. This wasn't a small patch of blood from a hard punch in a villain fight. This was larger. Wider even. And people were walking right over it as if it weren't even there. They just don't know. It's been days even. The police probably stepped in already. Nana sounded like she was at a loss. Izuku felt bad for causing her so much trouble, but he couldn't shake the thoughts in his head. He has jumped from the roof of the building. He had bled all over the pavement. He had died there. And they were just walking all over it? Why haven't the police found me yet? They had to know that was blood. A simple test could have shown them it was mine. Why was it such a big deal? It's good that the police didn't investigate. He couldn't have explained that to his mother. Especially since he had no scratches on him. He wanted someone to care. I care, Izuku. Remember? I didn't even know who you were and I tried to help you. Maybe Toshinori had something to do with it. He has friends in the police force. He could have tipped them off. Told them not to investigate and the situation was handled. And they just believed him. Izuku felt hurt and disgust. Nana sighed and Izuku felt her sit down next to him and wrap her arm around his shoulder. All Might's word carries a lot of weight. The silence between them stretched for a while before Izuku stood once more. He had to get to school before he was late. Still, the feeling of how unfair the whole situation was settled deep within him. His death really was that insignificant. Melancholy sat deep in his chest for the rest of the walk as he made his way to his school building. He was one of the last ones to arrive, but he made it before the bell rang. Walking into his class, he saw most of the chairs empty as the students all circled around Kiken's desk. They were all talking a mile a minute and Izuku found himself curious. Going to his own desk, he set his things down and tuned in. All right, I'll tell it again, but that's it? I'm tired of repeating myself. Bakugo grumbled, but Izuku could hear the smugness in his voice. The damn thing grabbed me while I was walking home. Those extras I was with ran off like cowards and didn't bother helping me. I didn't need it anyway. Izuku rolled his eyes at how every student seemed to have admiration in their eyes as Kiken continued on. It took me to the center of town and tried to take over my body. The heroes were messing around and I knew they were too scared to help me either. So I grabbed the slimy bastard's face and blew it apart. A few of the girls cooed at the explosive blonde. "Oh Bakugo, you're so brave. You took down that villain all by yourself." "Damn right I did. No sludge monster can take me down. I did it all by myself without the heroes. That shows how much better I'll be when I finally get into UA. I'll be number one." Unlike all the times before when Bakugo would go on these rants about how much better he was than everyone else, the rest of the class seemed to join in on the excitement, cheering Bakugo on. What was this about? A villain? "Izuku, you don't think he's talking about the sludge villain, are you?" Nana asked hesitantly. "Toshinori trapped that thing the other day after it attacked you. But how did it get away?" Izuku muttered, suddenly causing some of the students to turn to face him. "Oh, it's Deku." They scoffed with disgust. Once his presence was announced, the group started to dissipate. Nobody wanted to be near him. As if his quirklessness was contagious. And with his attention not on the quickly dispersing fan club, Bakugo turned around and fixed his eyes on Izuku with an icy glare. "Why the hell were you late, shitty Deku?" he questioned, getting up out of his desk and walking over to Izuku's. His hands were smoking as he placed them down on the wood. Izuku couldn't help but think about his notebook that was waterlogged and burned the Friday before. "What the who is this brat calling Deku?" Nana hissed, causing Izuku to flinch. Bakugo seemed to get annoyed with Izuku's lack of response as he let a small explosion shake the desk. "Hey! I'm talking to you, nerd." Izuku shrunk in on himself as he tried explaining. "Why does it matter? I'm not late because the bell hasn't rung yet. You don't owe this punk any explanation." Nana was indignant, Izuku could tell. And he knew he was going to have to explain later just what she would witness as the class went on. "Do you think you're better than me? I made it here on time even after defeating a villain all by myself on Friday. And you think you can waltz in here just before the bell rings?" Kiken's anger was evident and Izuku was at a loss on what to do. The green-haired boy tried holding his hands up in a placating way, but Kiken just slapped them away and grabbed onto the front of his freshly cleaned uniform. "You damn nerd. And don't think I forgot about that stunt you pulled either. Thinking you can get into UA even as a quirkless Deku. Give it up. I'm going to be the first and only student to get out of this shithole and go to UA." Izuku didn't know what to do. He could feel the heat of Kiken's grip just under his chin. "Kiken, wait. I don't know what you want from me dash. I want you to leave me the hell alone for once. Ever since we were kids you've followed me around as if you're good enough to be compared to me. You're just a quirkless nerd, and if you think that makes you anything less than a no-good waste of breath dash." Suddenly, the front lights of the classroom shorted out with a pop, sparks sprinkled down from the ceiling, causing some of the other students to cry out and scurry back. Izuku felt warmth explode all over his body and he desperately wanted it out. No sooner had the thought passed his head did Bakugo's hand jerk from the front of his uniform, allowing Izuku the opportunity to slump back down into his seat. "What the dash?" The teacher ran in right then with the bell chiming as well. "Good morning class, apologies for my tardiness. There was a villain attack on the..." He paused as he took in the dark lights at the front of the classroom and the students out of their seats. "Oh my, it seems we have an electrical issue. I'll be sure to inform the school board. But for now, we have learning to do. Everyone in your seats and we'll continue where we left off Friday." The class went back to normal after that. As if it had never happened in the first place. They even ignored the busted lights that Izuku knew Nana had something to do with. "Izuku, sweetie, are you alright? That was Kiken? The kid that told you to take a swan dive?" She seemed to be brimming with questions and Izuku could do nothing about it. He instead flipped open his school notebook and started to take notes. There was time for an interrogation later when he was in the safety of his own home and able to comprehend the fact that Kikin was also attacked by the sludge villain and apparently was able to fend it off all by himself. One thing was for sure. Nana was not going anywhere. Her warmth was seated right between him and Kikin. And while Izuku knew she realistically couldn't do anything to stop Kikin from hurting him, Izuku felt a little safer that way.
Oh my god.